people to his articles and creating a debate, whether you agree with his writing or not. And with me, it was about 60-40 at the time. I didn't agree with what he said, but he's a very good writer, very nice chap. And it's where I sort of got introduced to a lot of people that I now hopefully could class as friends, and got into Linux in the home up 100% and stopped the dual booting lifestyle. And so I keep an eye on Microsoft Watch, although it certainly isn't the site it used to be when Joe ran it. And this is about Windows 8, and I'm just going to read one sentence here, and then I'm going to draw reference to something. It's talking about Windows 8 here, and it says, colourful tiles that display attractive active information and open applications at a finger touch. Well, that to me sounds a lot like Unity, which I covered a few episodes ago. It's Windows 8 has had a lot of talk and a lot of speculation about it, and I think a bit of a faux pas by Steve Ballmer at a talk where Microsoft started rowing for shore when they tried to imply that he wasn't talking about Windows 8. And I don't know, Roy, have you got any other bits and pieces you've picked up on Windows 8, which from what I've read...
Well, previously they were accused of copying a lot of things out of KDE 4, especially when Windows 7 was released. And quite disappointing, nobody's actually produced as far as I know, a very good video showing side by side the similarities between what KDE did around 2007 and then what Microsoft did the following year, in the same way that you had the comparison between Vista and Mac OS X to show that Vista was in fact inspired or copied from Apple. Actually, I should point out that the Comms versus Microsoft case produces a very, very nice document, very nice emails from inside Microsoft showing you that Microsoft was in fact copying Apple's products, looking at what they did, and saying we need to do the same type of thing. And it shows you the managers of Windows doing that, looking at the demos of Apple and trying to do the same type of thing. And this is the way Microsoft basically always worked, and even tried to replicate Lotus. And we have documents to show that too, from inside Microsoft actually having to copy all the things, and we have statements from Microsoft saying we have to copy every feature in Netscape. This is Microsoft for you. This is innovation. So look at what the competitors do and just, do what they did.
Well, if I can just read this next paragraph, it's going to be linked in the show notes. This is the Microsoft Watch article that I've been talking about. And this is what it says, and I'll explain why I've read it in a second. It's Windows 8 features multitasking, including the ability to display two apps side by side on the screen. Users can snap applications to one side of the screen. Yeah. I know you know where I'm going with this. A feature heavily reminiscent of Aero Snap present in Windows Vista and Windows 7. A swipe of the finger will cycle through apps. There's a virtual keyboard, adjustable interface, side. Windows 8 will apparently support the full version of legacy applications such as Office. Now, the reason why I bring this up...
How is it different from Windows 98?
Well, the reason I bring this up is for the same reason when Windows 7 was in the sort of rumour stage and we knew it was coming, but we didn't know exactly when, and we didn't know exactly what it was going to be. I certainly wasn't privy to any special pre-release versions. I know that some people were doing the beta testing and were downloading the beta version, but I certainly didn't really take much of a look at it. So, with that in mind, I'm reading this paragraph, and yes, fair enough, it's come from Microsoft Watch, and it's just somebody's opinion, but I'm desperate to see what's...
It was written by Nicholas, by the way.
Well, I'm desperate to see here what is unique here, what's new that's being offered to people that we don't already have. Where's the innovation? This isn't anything that we can't already do already. And this was exactly the same thing that I said with Windows 7. A lot of these, all these features, again, in true Microsoft style, you never quite know what these features do because they usually wrap them up in buzzwords and a fudgy sort of mess of a description of what the feature is. So you never quite know what it is. But what I've just described just sounds like it just sounds like Android. I can switch between applications with a swipe of my finger.
Yeah, the audience, I think the marketing people who wrote this type of thing, they think of the target audience and look at the statistics and who they try to approach with what descriptions. So they probably won't be talking to the virtual desktops because that's just going to baffle people. And actually, they don't have this either.
But I mean,
this is why Steve Joe back in Microsoft. I was going to say, I was asking you if Nicholas wrote the article, which I suppose he did.
I'm just waiting for it to load. I'm just getting that up now.
He's a big booster of Microsoft. And Joe, if Joe was to write about it, he probably would write something a bit more provocative and inquisitive, something like, what is new in Windows 8? And I'm not sure. I don't see anything new.
Yep.
But this is going to be more like a press release derived from the announcement from Microsoft. But Yeah, and I asked people in Twitter, if you can tell me what's new in the operating system that couldn't be done before, just let me know. I haven't received any. I received some response, but it's just basically, well, there is nothing. Don't even bother trying to find out. So.
Well, I mean, I asked the same question with Windows 7. I actually got a Microsoft employee who was, to be fair to him, he was fully open about being a Microsoft employer. He was one of the management. I'm not sure. I can't remember now off the top of my head what team. We'll have to look after the show and put it in the show notes. I think his name was Mr. Rose, Michael Rose, if memory serves me correct. And I mean, the same question was asked, and apart from a long-winded explanation of what Windows 7 was going to do and what it could offer, there wasn't really an answer of what it could do that was any different to even XP or anything that you couldn't achieve with Vista, God forbid. So it's I mean, it's like we see with Office, every single release they put a few extra bells and whistles on it, in my view, to enable to sell a new version under the guise of it being brand new and innovative, when really the core of it is exactly what people have been using. It just looks a bit different. And I think it was, I think you used the term before, lipstick on a pig. I've
they have these words that they use. They usually will use the word experience or innovative. I think actually Apple is the one that likes to use the word experience a lot. The word which Canonical likes to use is something like exciting. Say, coming from both Jono and what's his name, Mark Shuttleworth, and in the case of SUSE, they like to talk about agile. Sure, agility was their buzzword at some time in 2008. And Fedora, I suppose you could go through all the kinds of, what they try to project as their merit. So, like, Mint would be something like easy to use, or you're supposed to think of this way, and some of them would be about community, some of them would be about freedom, and in the case of Microsoft, it's just like all this nonsense about innovation. I wrote an article 2 hours ago. Actually, I wrote it before I was sitting on the sun with my PDA, and I wrote this article about why Microsoft is actually the opposite of innovation. Microsoft is actually actively destroying innovation, which relates to an article that actually 3 articles so far that I've covered, and that's about Microsoft trying to restrict the use of hardware or the allocation of resources in hardware in such a way that any company like Asus, which tries to make an Android tablet or an Android phone or something of that sort, I think they also do phones now, will have to comply by some rules from Microsoft saying, make the screen small, don't have this, don't have that, because Microsoft will say, we're trying not to confuse the users, but it has nothing to do with Windows. It's just the hardware features. And they try to remove these things, and why would the hardware maker want to do that? Because they want to keep good relationships with Microsoft. And also, it turns out Microsoft pays them a bribe, or as they call it, incentives. You can call a bribe all kinds of stuff, a gift or incentive. It is a bribe. Just here's some money, mess up your thingy, your Android thing, make it more expensive, make it less capable. And Barnes & Noble actually exposed some of the complaints about Microsoft, which said that the demands from Microsoft, one of them, Microsoft wants to be paid for Android. The second thing they try and do is to say, we have a patent on it, so please remove this feature. And this is something about patents people aren't so aware of, but their phones could do a hell of a lot of stuff, but the average phone doesn't have a lot of functionality which would be very easy to add just because of patents.
Well, on a lighter note now, just skipping down my list of news articles that have caught my eye, we've got one with Linux boldly going where no distro or operating system has gone before, and this article comes courtesy of Robert Pogson, a very, very good writer. I thoroughly enjoy reading his blog and his tweets, and he's made mention about the International Space Station. Now, apparently that has now moved to Linux. The server has migrated to Linux. So that's a bit of good news there for Linux. And let's just have a little look down. Is there anything else on that?
He's a very good, funny person who, we mentioned it before. And
yeah.
One thing I would advise him is to not do the MS with the $sign. Not because there is anything wrong with the implications Microsoft cares about money, but because he allows his critics to discredit his posts when he does that. So when people see this, they say, that's immature, that's a hatred. I don't know, it's been stigmatized.
The thing I like about his writing is that he tackles some quite complex subjects, but he's able to put them in a way which can appeal to a lot of people. Most people can read his articles and obviously understand them, and he's a very, very good writer. I must admit, I only got into his work recently, and I've probably casually seen a couple of his articles